Hello students, welcome back to my class. Today we are going to study the romantic poet P.B. Shelley's one of the most anthologized poem, Ode to the West Wind. This Ode to the West Wind is an ode or is composed in the praise of the west wind, which is in the Greek mythology is called Zephyr, and which is responsible for bringing the powerful wind and storm and rain in the months of autumn. The arrival of the west wind symbolizes the end of the particular year, and at the same time it also in another way suggests the cyclic movement of life and death. P.B. Shelley, as we know, was one of the most rebellious amongst the romantic poets of 19th century, and he exhibited his romantic intensity through his powerful ideas and the poetic visions. So here in this ode he is trying to bring out certain references to the contemporary life of his own as well as his society. In the background of this poem, we can find the personal sufferings of Shelley, the loss of his daughter, and also the public incidents like the Peterloo massacre that took place in 1819, where the people were demanding for more inclusive parliamentarian system or the franchisee for voting, and they were massacred. So Shelley was suffering in his life both from his personal tragedies as well as from the general catastrophe that was coming to the life of Britain in particular and Europe in general. So Ode to the West Wind is an invocation to the west wind, which serves as the messenger of God and indicate the presence of divinity. And it is also the west wind which is considered as very lucky or very fruitful from the point of view of the fishermen, because during this period, during the west wind, the fishes, they bite the bait in a large number. So it is an auspicious power, but which seems to be a destroyer on the surface. The poem is divided into 5 cantos, and every canto is consisting of 4 tercets, 3 lines, and the first and third line rhyming, and the final couplet is also rhyming. This is in iambic pentameter, and the poem is divided into different parts. In part 1, the poet describes about the effect of the west wind on the land. In the second part, it is on the ocean, in the air, and in the third part, it is on the ocean. And the final two cantos, there the poet is personally interacting with west wind, and he is talking to west wind for inspiration, for upliftment, so on and so forth. So the poem begins, O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. So he has personified the west wind as a wild but enchanting power, that it drives away the dead leaves that were accumulated during the autumn. When the leaves fall from the plants and the arrival of the winter is indicated, and the wind is driving these dead leaves like ghosts on the land, like an enchanter, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence stricken multitudes. Very beautifully, the poet is describing this multitude of dead leaves as a congregation of the black, pale and hectic red. All these colors are symbolizing sickness, disease and destruction. And O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed, and the west wind is charioting them, driving them to their wintry bed, to the bed of the winter. Winter is the time when many creatures in the nature, they go for hibernation. So the dead leaves, as if they are the living creatures, they are like the supernatural ghosts being driven into their hibernation. The winged seats where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow. And there the leaves will lie cold and low in the folds of the earth, each like a corpse. They are like, each of the leaf is like a corpse, like a dead body within its grave, until the beautiful spring arrives. Azure sister, the bright and beautiful spring, the sister of autumn, the sister of west wind arrives. Her clarion over the dreaming earth, and fill driving sweet birds like flocks to feed in air with living hues and odors plain and hill. And here he describes about the spring, that the spring season will come with its clarion over the dreaming earth, when the earth will be dreaming, lying low, all those potencies lying low, the lives lying low within the earth and dreaming. The clarion call of the spring will wake them up, and driving sweet birds, everywhere there will be birds, beautiful flowers will be sprouting, and the newly burned lamps will be running away, will be released into the meadows with living hues and odors plain and hill. Wild spirit which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, O hear. So at the end of the Canto 1, he is addressing the west wind as both a destroyer and a preserver. So it is an auspicious wind. It is not the wind of death and destruction, but it is wind of destruction to create. Thou on whose stream mid the steep sky's commotion, loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves are set, shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. In the second canto, he describes the act of west wind in the air, in the ether, in the air. that how it creates a great commotion in the sky. Loose clouds like Earth's decaying leaves, it is doing the same thing to the loose clouds of the autumn, which are very light and small, like the dead leaves on the earth. It is driving them in a fringed manner and shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. And these clouds which are hanging from the heaven, or which is there very near to the ocean, because in the horizon it seems as if these clouds are hanging near the ocean, they are being driven madly by you. Angels of rain and lightning, that are sprayed on the blue surface of thine airy surge. But at the same time, the poet is bringing out the other personality, the other character of the west wind by telling you are not only a mad conjurer, a mad enchanter, but also you are like the angels of rain and lightning. You bring lightning and rain. These are the manifestations of life, the rain. The lightning is the manifestation of all creation. They are sprayed on the blue surface of thine airy surge, when you are surging in the air, like the bright hair uplifted from the head. Here he is bringing out a beautiful personification which was very common during that romantic period. Here I can remind you of the poem Kubla Khan of Coleridge. In the last part of Kubla Khan, Coleridge is imagining the poet as a fiery person moving in the air with floating hair and the bright lightning eyes. So the same figure is emerging here. He is comparing the west wind with like the bright hair uplifted from the head, as if it is a fringed creature from the cosmos, a cosmic figure of some fierce mannered, even from the dim verge of the horizon to the zenith side. And he is comparing it with Maenad, the Maenad, who is a female follower of the Greek god Dionysian or the Roman god Bacchus, the god of vegetation. She is treated as a fringed woman with great energy, great passion. So the west wind is compared with Maenad, personified as Maenad, even from the dim verge of the horizon to the zenith height, the locks of the approaching storm. The approaching storm is the lock of this west wind. It is that floating hair of Coleridge. Thou diest of the dying year, to which this closing night will be the dome of a vast sepulchre. And the west wind, according to Shelley, is singing the song or singing the lamentation of the funeral of a dying year. The year is coming to an end with the winter. The year will come to an end. So it is autumn. So the year is dying in the deathbed, to which this closing night will be the dome of a vast sepulchre, vaulted with all thy congregated might. And the poet could visualize, like Coleridge in Kubla Khan, the dome of a vast sepulchre. Here is a dome, but it is a dome of a vast sepulchre. It is the chamber of the grave of the dead body of a very royal, of a very powerful personality, vaulted with all thy congregated might. And there you are, creating a very intense force of yours by which you will explode on this earth, you will explode on this air to bring the commotion, bring the destruction to the old order of vapors from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail with burst O here. And with all this intensified pressure of west wind that is bursting in the air, the vapors that were being created from the ocean, they are transformed into the black rain, the first rain, which is carrying all the dirty things from the air and becoming black. So, the west wind, in the view of the poet, is working like a cleaner of the old, decayed, dead elements. In the third canto, the poet is bringing out the working of west wind on the ocean. Thou who didst waken from his summer dreams the blue Mediterranean where he lay, lulled by the coil of his crystalline streams. So, the poet is telling those who wake up in the summer morning from their dreams, what they will find? That the west wind is making the blue Mediterranean Sea, which is also having its own dream. The ocean is calm and quiet, but the arrival of the west wind is creating the commotion within it, as if it is trying to give the shape to the dream of the ocean, where he lay lulled by the coil of his crystalline streams, where the crystal waters from the river, they are serving to the Mediterranean Sea. They are bringing with them the dreams from the land to the sea, and the ocean is having the dream, but from that dream, the west wind is waking it up. Beside Epumice, isle in Bay's Bay, and saw in sleep old palaces and towers quivering within the waves' intenser day. The poet is referring to the Pumice Isle. It is a volcanic isle which was once a beautiful city in the Bay's Bay, a lost Roman city full of grandeur and splendor. Now it is lying underlying the sea water, and there the palaces and towers quivering within the waves' intense day. When the waves have started moving intensely by the effect of west wind, even those palaces and towers underneath the water, they are also quivering. All overgrown with azure moss and flowers so sweet the sense faints picturing them, thou for whose path the Atlantic levels power. And that submerged city and its structures which were covered with the azure moss and flowers and the sea blooms and the oozy woods, they bring the foliage of, they bring the Atlantic's level powers, the Atlantic Ocean's powers are now working on it and cleave themselves into chasms, while far below the sea blooms and the oozy woods. And the effect of the west wind is felt even very deep in the ocean, with its oozy woods at the bottom of the ocean, and the sea blooms and the foliage, slimy foliage, they all are being affected by the west wind. They are all being moved, being disturbed by the west wind. thy voice and suddenly grow grey with fear, and tremble and despoil themselves, O here. And suddenly you create a sense of fear with these foliages underneath the sea. If I were a dead leaf, thou mightest bear. If I were a swift cloud to fly with thee, a wave to pant beneath thy power and share the impulse of thy strength, only less free than thou, O uncontrollable. In the fourth canto, the poet is comparing himself with the west wind, and he is telling, if I were a dead leaf, you might bear. If I would have been a dead leaf or a swift cloud, I could have flown with you, I could have been with you, a wave to pant beneath thy power, and or like a wave, I could have also been moved by you. The impulse of thy strength, only less free than thou, O uncontrollable. He is addressing the west wind as uncontrollable, impulsive power. If even I were as in my boyhood and could be the comrade of thy wandering over the heaven, and then when to outstrip the sky speed scarce seemed a vision. And he is telling, when I was a boy, I was also like you. I was also moving in a very free manner, in an impulsive, intensified manner. But I would never have striven as thus with thee in prayer. In my sore need, O lift me as a wave, a leaf, a cloud. I fall upon the thorns of life, I plead. But now I am bled by life. I fall upon the thorns of life. The problems of life has made me weak, miserable, without motion. So you please lift me like a dead leaf or a cloud or a wave. A heavy weight of hours has chained and bowed once to like thee, tameless and swift and proud. Sure, he is describing about his own life, both his personal and public life. A heavy weight of hours has chained. The experience of life, heavy weight of hours means the experience of the life has made him chained. He has become chained. Man is born free, but he is chained everywhere in life. The more we live, the more we are within the chains. Once too like thee, tameless and swift and proud. But once upon a time, I was tameless, wild, swift and proud like you. In the final canto, the poet is praying to the west wind, make me thy lyre, even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own, the tumult of thy mighty harmonies? He is telling, make me your lyre, make me your voice. I will sing. As you are passing through the forest and the voice of you come out, your singing comes out. So I will be your voice if you carry me with you. What if my leaves are falling like its own, though I have become so old, so powerless, so chained? The tumult of thy mighty harmonies, with your tumultuousness, with your energy, with your frenzied movement, I can be harmonious because my body has become older. My responsibilities has made me slower, but my thoughts are with you. My thoughts are as frenzied as you. Will take form both a deep autumnal tone, sweet though in sadness. Be thou spirit fierce, my spirit, be thou me impetuous one. The poet is at the same time lamenting the condition on the earth, and at the same time he is also dreaming, he is also hoping that he will be able to overcome them and he will be spreading his own ideas, the romantic ideas of freedom, the romantic ideas of belongingness, the romantic ideas of the global the universal outlook to the whole humanity. Therefore, he is telling, sweet though in sadness, in spite of the sadness, there is some sweetness, the sweetness of the spirit. Thou spirit fears my spirit. Be thou me impetus one. You make my spirit your spirit. Make my spirit as impetus, as fierce as yours. Drive my dead thoughts over the universe, like withered leaves to quicken a new birth, and by the incantation of this verse. And he is telling that my thoughts of the youth, my thoughts of the universal brotherhood, my thoughts of the universal humanism, which are now becoming dead by so many experiences, you can take it like the dead leaves so that it can spread all over, as the dead leaves were in hibernation, but later in the spring season they are regerminated. So my thoughts, which are now becoming dead, can also awaken the people in other parts of the world. It can awaken others. It can create some inspiration in others about this humanism. And by the incantation of this verse, scatter as from an unextinguished hearth ashes and sparks my words among mankind. Very earnestly, he requests the west wind that you take away my dead thoughts and sprinkle them just like the ashes and sparks from the funeral of a dead body all over. As the sparks can go, the small spark can go and create a big fire. So my dead thoughts also can germinate into great ideas, great power for mankind. Be through my lips to unawakened earth the trumpet of prophecy. And he wants that west wind should be passing through his lips to unawakened earth. He wants to awaken the humanity to his noble vision, to his romantic vision of a barrierless humanity. The trumpet of a prophecy. He is addressing the west wind as the trumpet of prophecy. The trumpet of prophecy is related to the biblical suggestion of the end of the world, when the Christ will come back for the day of the judgment, and it is applied to the west wind that it will come as a destroyer, but at the same time it will bring back the new form of life over the old form. O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? So there is a great optimism at the end of this ode. The poet is declaring, O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? The death and life, they are inseparable. They follow each other. Life comes to an end, and again the end brings the beginning. So this winter, the end of the year, will herald the new year, the spring, the rejuvenation of the whole earth, the reincarnation of all our thoughts, our ideas. They can never be destroyed. The poet is highlighting here the indestructibility of thoughts, emotions, and ideas. They are very powerful. Man may die, but the thought of man, the ideas of man, they can never die. they will be rekindled somewhere. They will be brought back into life somewhere, as the Bible says that the Christ will bring back the dead ones into life. So, the poet also reposes his great faith in the power of the west wind as a divine power, as a power that can bring the new creation by destroying. So, it is not a destructive power only, but a creative power. So, this ode is presenting this analysis of life, divinity and spirituality in a romantic manner. It is a romantic poem, but through romanticism, Shelley is able to bring the essential values of life, the essential wisdoms of life, that life is indestructible, ideas are indestructible, imagination is indestructible, the nature is indestructible, and the nature is the manifestation of all these. So, this poem is also celebrating nature. Therefore, I will say that you can prepare questions like analyzing Ode to the West Wind as a romantic poem, or bring out the ideas of divinity or spirituality within Shelley's Ode to the West Wind. I hope you people will do justice to these questions. Thank you.